This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans, for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and joining us today is our boy Anders, going to give us this week's topics.
Well, Daryl Bevell in his first game as interim head coach gets a victory. One that's something that seldom came around for Matt Patricia. And we had a slew of press conferences with a lot of comments from Troy Weaver over on the Pistons side, and preseason's about to start in a few days here, so we'll talk about that as well. It's Fan Report.
All right, well, game one of the Daryl Bevell era led to a vintage come-from-behind victory. Matthew Stafford in that fourth quarter looked like his old self. Looked like he was unleashed a little bit late in this game, almost. It seemed like we had seen this before. First half was same old. No doubt about that. Couldn't stop the run. Couldn't stop really anything. Couldn't get stops on defense.
Let up 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half. The first time Chicago had pulled it off since 1990, apparently.
You know, I don't want to brag, but I did say David Montgomery was a great start this week.
Hey, I had him going in all 3 of my FanDuel lineups.
I decided not to listen to myself and did not start him.
Jesus. Have you not learned from earlier to just listen to yourself?
Apparently not, because I don't know. But no, it looked like it was going to be pretty much same old with this team. And in a lot of ways, it still was same old with this team. But we did see some halftime adjustments that kind of really turned things around. It came out with a different fervor in the second half and got after it and made the right adjustments to slow down the Bears offense and get their offense really back on track and going. And they looked better today. I'm not going to say they look good. I'm not going to say they look good. I still don't believe that. I don't believe this is a good football team. But they looked better. It looked like this team wanted to play for their coach, which is something I don't think we've seen in a couple of years now. And you mentioned wins came seldom for Matt Patricia. Well, that's an understatement.
But the defense still is terrible. Like you said, they adjusted a bit better in the second half. Like they made adjustments that I don't think Matt Patricia would have made as head coach. I think if Matt Patricia was still coaching today,
they would have lost that game.
This game would have gone ugly.
Yeah, they absolutely would have lost this game. They would have probably allowed at least 1 or 2 more touchdowns to the Bears. Bears probably would have taken the foot off the gas a little bit, but
this is what we're saying when we say that not having Galladay and Swift, like injuries in general, is not an excuse to have the offense look like what it looked like the last few weeks. This is the same offense that got shut out by the Carolina Panthers.
Yes, it's still Daryl Bevell calling plays.
They put up 34 points on a pretty good Chicago Bear defense, and I think I'm pretty confident saying this is Matthew Stafford's best game this season. And lo and behold, it's the first game about Matt Patricia.
Best game of the year. I think he's got one other one where he put up 3 touchdowns, no picks, had a fantastic game, threw 300 yards. I think he's got one other game that what really was his best game of the year. But this is, for me, if not, it's like 1A and 1B. Like, this is easily one of his best games of the year. There's no question about it. He was let loose in a lot of ways. He looked better. He did have his mistakes, which Stafford just seemingly is good for at least 1 or 2 very obvious and egregious mistakes that in every single game. But he was able to combat that, come back from that, and still make plays. One thing that, and you bring up a good point that the injuries they have on the offense just is really no excuse for this offense. Because again, this is the same Lions offense we saw last week and the week before, and the offense this is the same Lions offense that we saw against the Panthers. Except they didn't have Marvin Hall because they cut him. So this was the exact...
Which is peculiar to me.
It was kind of strange. I did find that kind of interesting because Marvin Hall seemed good for a 1 deep ball a game or 2 deep balls a game, and Matt Stafford just loved to throw it to him. But, I mean, it did open the door a little bit for Quintez Cephas, and he actually showed up today. I was encouraged by his play today. He was able to score a touchdown. He played. He actually played like we hoped he would.
He had one bad drop, but on the whole, just he did make the most of the opportunities he got outside of that one bad drop.
I do find it interesting that while it has taken roughly 12, 13 weeks, this division is actually shaping up exactly how we predicted at the beginning of the year.
It was completely backwards at first.
I know. Packers up top with the Vikings now really the second best team in the division, and honestly the way they're playing may be the best team in the division right now. They're definitely one of the hottest, and then the Bears third or worse. Like it's the two bottom teams being the Lions and the Bears. This division really is shaping up the way we thought at the beginning of the year. And I mean, technically speaking, the Lions are still in it for the playoffs with the extra wild card spot this year. But is that something you want to see the Lions go after?
I mean, here's the thing. At this point, you've played yourself out of a top 5 pick.
Yes. The win today really kind of guarantees you're not in the top 5.
But at the same time, like, for me to say, okay, I want us to try to make a last-ditch playoff effort here, part of me would want to believe that we could do something in the playoffs, but there's no part of me that believes the Lions can do anything against an actual playoff team unless they beat the Packers next. If they beat the Packers and the Vikings, maybe Darren Bevel's got some magic touch that Matt Patricia didn't have. But as of right now, I still don't believe the Lions can do anything against any playoff caliber teams, which means no, I don't want to see them go for a playoff run and try to preserve as much value as they can out of their first round pick.
So I completely agree with you, and I actually have another. I'm gonna kind of zig where you're zagging a little bit, where I still don't want the Lions to make the playoffs for multitudes of reasons. It has less to do with the fact that I don't think they do anything. I think they'd be wild card fodder, where they just get demolished the first game of the playoffs.
Exactly, yeah, they wouldn't do it. Yeah, right. They wouldn't do anything.
It's not so much that as it would be. I think you would severely hinder yourself in going after having your top choice of GMs or coaches because you're already putting them behind the ball. You already don't have a ton of draft picks in this upcoming draft. They were traded away. I think you've only got 5. On top of that, you have a contract situation with Kenny Golladay. That's another behind the balls, like a not where you want to be situation. You have issues with bad contracts with Justin Coleman's contracts not looking great. You have an issue there. You have a question of what you do with Matthew Stafford and how much dead money he's got in the next year. I believe he's $23.5 million of dead money if you trade him or get rid of him in the next season. So you've already got a bad situation moving forward with this organization. And then to put yourself in a position where you're in the bottom 15 draft picks, that's even worse. Like, what top-notch GM is going to want to come into a situation that he knows he's going to probably have to rebuild a lot of this roster with a draft pick that really isn't all that great? You've played yourself out of a top 5 pick, but you have not played yourself out of a top 10 pick just yet, or a top 12 pick just yet. You can still, and Stafford at the very least helped his trade stock today, without a doubt. Before, where you were looking at maybe 2 second-round picks, maybe you're looking at a first-round pick for Stafford in the offseason at this point in time. Maybe. Because he showed that he's still got a lot left in the tank.
He showed off against a team that would be a really good fit for him.
The more I look at other teams' rosters, there's a good number of teams that he would actually fit quite well with.
Yeah.
The Broncos are a great example. The 49ers are a fantastic example. Because I really think that team may be a quarterback away from competing for another title. The Cowboys are another team if they don't believe in Dak or if they don't want to sign him for the money after the injury. The Bears. There's a few teams out there that really could just be a quarterback away.
You can even consider the Colts. I mean, Phillip Rivers, let's be honest, he's on his way out.
The Colts are another great example. I mean, there's teams out there that a quarterback could be something that they're looking for. You could have a bidding war there. But again, like you haven't played yourself out of a top 10 pick just yet. You still can be in that range, but if you make the playoffs, you're obviously outside of it. And that doesn't put you in a solid situation for an incoming GM and an incoming coach, because what do you have to offer them? That already puts the new regime behind the game a little bit. So I would obviously much rather this team be in a situation where they're picking in the top 10 with a new head coach and a new GM coming in. And we'll get into a little bit of that also, because there are some talking points I wanted to bring up with that. But I'd rather have them in a situation where the next guy could pick maybe the quarterback of the future or some big time additions to this roster in the draft.
So you're in the camp that the Lions basically hurt themselves more than they helped themselves by winning this week, similar to what we were talking about with the Washington game a few weeks ago.
Right. Absolutely. 100% agree. Like, this game does hurt them a little bit, especially because the Bears are one of those teams that are kind of competing with them for a top pick. And the Bears are probably looking at a quarterback in the draft also. Because I don't think they believe in Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles to be their quarterback of the future.
No, sir.
At least they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. Both those guys should be shot out of a cannon at this point.
It's hard to believe that Nick Foles wanted, like, the Nick Foles, I mean, obviously we haven't seen him in a couple of games now, but the Nick Foles that we were seeing with the Bears this season, it's hard to believe it's the same quarterback that won a Super Bowl.
I mean, even with the Jags, he was terrible. This Nick Foles come playoff time is a completely different quarterback than Nick Foles in the regular season. Like, there's something that just, like, clicks in that man's head where he's like, boom, playoffs, I got to play. It's a completely different quarterback.
It's mind-boggling.
It really is.
So, going back to the game itself, it's just a coincidence that we saw TJ Hawkinson maybe more involved than he's been. I mean, he's been pretty heavily involved all season, but I'm pretty sure that 9 targets this week is the most he's been targeted all season. Do you think that's a coincidence?
Absolutely not. I don't think it's coincidence at all. I actually think that's kind of a little bit of a glimpse of what we can see with an.
Sorry, he was targeted 10 times against Indy. But other than that, that is his most targets.
I think this is a glimpse of an offense that we can see that is entirely decided by Darrell Bevell. I think he had probably 80% of the influence in the offense before, maybe 90%, but I think Matt Patricia still said you need to spread the ball around more. Don't just zero in on 1 or 2 guys. Spread the ball, spread the ball, spread the ball, even to guys that really aren't deserving it or open. I think Darrell Bevell's getting the tight end more involved is entirely on him. Yeah. Like, I think that absolutely has him having control written all over, because Russell Wilson loved his tight ends. And this is the same, it's a very similar offense that the Seahawks ran when they were winning their Super Bowl. Like, this is a very similar offense. And the tight end was a big part of that, and it's going to be a big part of the offense as long as Darrell Bevell's in charge.
And I mean, it's on the whole, the offense looked a lot more aggressive this week. They came out slinging in a way that I hadn't seen. It didn't feel like, because like with Matt Patricia's games, it felt like he was obligated to go run. All right, we'll try to pass it for a third down here. All right, run again, even though it's not working. No, like Darrell Bevell mixed it up enough, and he wasn't afraid to call plays throwing the ball downfield. Like I feel like he must have had like a leash on him, and that leash obviously got taken off as soon as Matt Patricia left, and Bevell's been able to call the types of plays that he probably has been wanting to call all season.
See, what I don't understand is, though, like, it's 2020. If you and I can sit on our couches and say, this offense needs to mix it up a little more on first and second down, why can't they see that? It's so obvious that, look at the Chiefs. Reigning Super Bowl champs. They're the class of the league right now. Do they run the ball on first and second down in every single drive? No, they hardly run the ball. The games are won through the air at this point in time, and honestly, those short 5, 6, 7 yard passes is every bit as good as a solid running game. Every bit as good. So why they're not mixing in play fakes on first down, or weren't mixing in play fakes on first down? Why they're not mixing in passes on first down? Hell, if I were to have seen the Lions go empty backfield on a first down in a first quarter when Matt Patricia was the head coach, hell, I might have pissed myself. Like, that type of stuff is how you keep defenses on their toes, and you're a step ahead of them at that point. And that's how you win football games in 2020. You outsmart the defense. You run an offense that, hey, just because you run a certain package out does not say that, oh, they're going to run or they're going to pass. And just because it's first down, it doesn't mean, oh, they're going to run. You mix things up. And that what I don't understand is why we weren't doing this all year. You and I can see it while sitting on the couch. Why can't they? They're paid millions of dollars. And I'm not saying I could be an NFL head coach in any way. Like, yeah. I know I don't know enough about the game. Like, I love to think I do, but I know I don't. But at the same time, if you and I can see it, why can't they?
To me, it's a case of being way too close to the source. like they just gotta pull it back just a little bit, take a look at the big picture again, and just open their minds a little bit. But fun fact that I want to throw out, and this is a complete 180 here. There's only been 2 games. I think Trubisky started now 5 games this season, I want to say.
I think you're right. Sounds about right.
Only 2 games has he not thrown interception. Can you guess what 2?
The weeks against the Lions.
Correct.
Yeah, and it has everything to do with, one, we have no pass rush. Two, our secondary is terrible.
And he played against, Atlanta. He still made some interception against Atlanta. He played, the Giants defense has not been half bad this season. He still threw 2 picks against them anyway.
Lately, especially. That Giants team looks like they're going to be the winners of the NFC East at this point.
Is that like an accomplishment or?
No. However, they did just beat the Seahawks today. So that's something. That is something.
Oh, man. But yeah, that was my big takeaway from this game, was just how the contrast that we saw offensively. It felt like kind of the same old defense, but the contrast that we saw offensively from last week to this week, and the fact that it looked like we were actually able to make halftime adjustments for once. Those were my 2 big takeaways, and the play of Matthew Stafford. Did you have anything else that you want to touch? I know you wanted to get into the GM stuff,
right?
Too.
About the game, not really, because again, this game is so unconsequential to me, like in the big picture, outside of the fact that it, in all honesty, for the next regime, hurts them more than it helps them. Because again, I don't think this team's going to make the playoffs, and 2, I don't think this team's going to do anything in the playoffs if they do make it.
Yeah, I know. I know. I've stopped being invested when I don't so much as clap when I see a touchdown.
I mean, I get a little happy. Like when Quintez Cephas scores a touchdown, I get happy. Or TJ Hawkinson scores a touchdown, I get happy. Like, I want to see those guys succeed.
That's what I'm saying. Like that Quintez Cephas touchdown, I was stone faced. I was like, wow, I really don't care about this guy.
I'm actually kind of surprised. Like, I want to see Cephas succeed. Like when the guys that are likely going to be a part of the future of this franchise succeed, I get excited. Yeah. When guys like Marvin Jones succeed, I'm stone-faced. Why? Because I really don't expect them to be a part of the future of this franchise. Like, I don't see a future for him here. But like when guys like Cephas or Swift or Hawkinson succeed, which Hawkinson, again, I've said it all year, this dude's taking a step up. He's going to be a good tight end in this league. He may not be Travis Kelce good or George Kittle good or Zach Ertz good, but I absolutely think he's going to be.
You're drafting him where you
I know. He may not be, and he very well may be. But I do think he's going to be in that at the very top of that next tier tight end. Yeah. I do.
I think he could be.
He very possibly could be. He's got to have the right quarterback and the right offense to do it, because those teams focus on those players. Like, they have the right offense to do it. But
I mean, especially if Eric Bieniemy is, I do think Eric Bieniemy
could bring it out of him. He could. But Eric Bieniemy may not be the next head coach, which actually segues us into the next topic I want to bring up here. But there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of days of who the next head coach and GM could be. And the duo Ives, the same 2 names have just continuously been drilled at us. So much so that the state legislation is going after one of the names for the head coaching position. And the GM name that I'm going to bring up and start with is John Dorsey, which we didn't talk about last week. We did talk about John Dorsey last week. I believe I know he was involved with the Browns organization in their building. I think he also has some experience with the Steelers as well in building their situation.
Chiefs,
sorry, not the yeah, he was. So give you an idea of what his history again, just to kind of run through. He was with the Browns as their GM from 2017 2019. So he built that organization and what they've got now. He was involved with the Chiefs as their GM from 2013 to 16. And then he was director of football operations and in college scouting for the Packers for a while, from 2000 to 2012, basically.
Yeah, he's the one who drafted Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Kelce, which is the 3 biggest players. Of the Chiefs.
So obviously this guy's got a lot of very solid drafting experience.
And for the Browns, he brought in Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb and Denzel Ward, and he basically brought in both teams' best play. He built both teams into what
through
they
the
are
draft. Now he doesn't come without his negatives. I have seen a lot of negatives in terms of he basically keeps a very short leash on the coaching staff and basically he micromanages the coaching staff. He doesn't let them do what they need to do. And he also causes a lot of animosity in the front office and with ownership, which he did do with Cleveland. That's why he was let go, if I remember right. So there are, he does come with his drawbacks, but he does have a proven track record of drafting. So then there's been a lot of smoke of the Lions going guns blazing to go after him. Like, they're going full bore, putting all their chips into going after John Dorsey. I've seen a lot of rumors about him being the potential future GM. I don't know if he's interested, but the Lions certainly are. So, I'm curious. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit last week, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. If that encourages you a little bit, that the Lions are going after a big-name GM as opposed to giving a newer guy the opportunity to earn his stripes in this league.
The last time I remember the Lions going after a big name was Steve Mariucci. Ever since then, it always felt like our hirings were either trying to try to get cute with it, trying to bring new guys in. I mean, I guess you could, because Matt Patricia was like one of the biggest names on the market when we hired him. But
he was,
again, it wasn't like he was a huge name. Like John Dorsey is a pretty big name. Obviously, that negative that you talked about, that is a little bit worrying because it does remind me a bit of Patricia as a coach. But now we're talking about a GM. But my thing with GMs is the same thing I was talking about when the Pistons hired Troy Weaver. I like GMs who can spot talent. Because specifically for a Detroit team, you need a GM who can spot talent and build talent through the draft. And John Dorsey has a proven track record of doing that. Just like Troy Weaver, even though he wasn't a full-blown GM as an assistant, he had a proven track record of doing that. That's why I would like John Dorsey. He's the exact type of GM that I would want to bring in. Now, I would hope he can be a little more hands-off than he's been in the past, but the fact that the Lions are swinging for the fences here is encouraging to me, because that means they're, for once, taking this seriously, because I haven't felt like they've taken any GM or coaching search seriously in many years.
Oh, I 100% agree. And just looking at the track record, I mean, they went cute with Matt Millen, a former player who didn't have any experience, but he was an analyst. They went after him. That clearly did not succeed. Then they went after Martin Mayhew, who was a Matt Millen disciple. That clearly did not succeed. Then they went to Bob Quinn. That clearly did not succeed. So, who was, again, a scout for the Patriot way. And then that didn't succeed, like I mentioned. And then now we're finally going after something that is a proven GM in this league, and a guy who I feel like is able to take the reins. They will give him the reins entirely and allow him to have full control over who he appoints where. He will be able to decide who his scouts are. He's probably got a lot of very close contacts there, bringing a lot of the guys that he's had success with. So he's going to surround himself with a lot of good people. A lot of good people that are going to help bring success to this city and this football team. And that's what I like about John Dorsey also is, like you mentioned, it does seem like they are taking it seriously. And that's something that, again, I like that they're not trying to be too cute with this. They're not trying to be the smartest people in the room.
What do you think is the risk, though, of John Dorsey's reputation preceding him and kind of scaring away some potential coaches like a Robert Saleh or Eric Bieniemy?
I really don't think it's going to. I think in terms of coaches that have been here, they've been around the league a while as head coaches, that may scare some of them away. Like some of the guys that have already earned their stripes in this league, it may scare some of those guys. But I don't think it's going to scare away a coordinator who's looking for their first shot in the league as a head coach. Yeah. I don't think that's. I think they'll be looking at it as an opportunity to work with a guy like John Dorsey and say, "Oh man, he's going to set me up to succeed. This is the right guy. He's going to give me the right talent." But you bring up that in the city of Detroit, we need a guy that's really good at spotting talent. Not just in Detroit, but in this league in particular. You have to win through the draft. You don't win through free agency. Look at the Browns last year. Look at the Eagles from, I think it was 2008, and all those free agent signings. You don't win through free agency in this league. You win through the draft. So it's of utmost importance to be able to draft successfully, and he's a guy who has that proven track record. So I think John Dorsey is the dream scenario to that. I'll go that far and say it's the dream scenario for the Lions, and a guy who is a proven successful GM, a proven winner, and a proven guy with an eye for talent that very few people possess. And I will say, at the very least, even if he isn't here to see this team succeed and he does get fired in a few years, give it a couple of years after that, based on his track record, will probably succeed with his guys. Because look at the Browns now and look at the Chiefs now.
Now, assuming the Lions don't try to get overly cute with it and try to bring a coach in before a GM, which would be stupid,
is something I have heard is possible.
Yep, but let's say the Lions actually are successful in their pursuit of John Dorsey and are able to bring him in. You consider the fact that John Dorsey is the one who brought Eric Bieniemy into Kansas City. Do you think John Dorsey will have any pull in bringing him to Detroit?
I do, actually. I think that's a situation where Bieniemy is going to look at John Dorsey and say, oh, damn, he set me up with extreme success in KC with that talent. He's going to set me up for success here in Detroit, too. I think that's a great opportunity, and there's probably a good connection there that Eric Bieniemy can say, all right, I've worked with him before. I know what he is. I know, what he's capable of and who he looks at. That fits my mold. That fits my mantra. I want to be a part of that, and I want to lead what he gives me. So I think that'll give a huge opportunity, and it'll make this job here in Detroit much more attractive to a guy like Eric Bieniemy. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else to add on the GM search?
No, John Dorsey is seemingly the guy that is the number one target. I'm very curious to see if he's actually interested in it. But if Lions do land it, I honestly will be very happy because it'll be the first time in a while. It's a guy that has a proven track record that I will really honestly trust.
All right, let's move on to the Pistons then.
Well, hang on a minute. We didn't even talk about the head coaching situation.
Oh, I didn't know you. I thought you were talking about GMs.
No. I on top of the GM, the other name that I've heard just thrown at us constantly over the past few days is Robert Saleh and his connections to the city of Detroit, growing up in Dearborn, coaching at CMU and coaching at Michigan State, earning his stripes there before moving into the league. We've seen the legislators of this area going after Robert Saleh to try to get him to come here. We've seen Richard Sherman say...
He was the head coach at Fordson, though, wasn't he, or no?
I don't know. I think so. But we've seen Richard Sherman say that he has to go coach for Detroit. It's the perfect fit. That'd be awesome to see him go there. Who, mind you, Richard Sherman's a free agent. That could be something attractive.
How much do you think Richard Sherman sells left in the tank, by the way?
Not much. But I do think at the very least he'd be a really good mentor for a young corner in Jeff Okudah. I really think that would be a very good situation for Jeff Okudah. And Richard Sherman actually has been pretty good this year, though.
What if we start seeing Jeff Okudah blossom with Matt Patricia?
That'd be awesome.
if it really has been just him being put in terrible situations to succeed by Matt Patricia.
Then Matt Patricia should be sent back to NASA where he belongs. He's a rocket scientist, not a football coach. But Robert Saleh obviously was a guy we talked about last week, and he's a guy that's been rumored as one of the lead candidates for the Lions, but it really seems like he is the number one candidate for the Lions to be their next head coach, and to the point where I've seen rumors that he could be hired before we even see a GM come here, which I don't like that. I don't care what the name is. I don't want to see a head coach here before we get a GM.
I agree.
I don't want a GM to be forced into his coach. We saw that with Bob Quinn and Caldwell, and it just felt awkward from the beginning. But I do, so with Robert Saleh and his connections here, with Richard Sherman saying he would love to come to Detroit, or he would love to see him come to Detroit, and he needs to come here and be a great fit, and just the amount of noise that's been around Robert Saleh and him coming back home to be a head coach. I even think Robert Saleh said that he still has love for the city of Detroit, and he still has a great connection here, and so there's a lot of rumors floating around, but would you be excited to see Robert Saleh be the next head coach, or would that be a little bit disappointing for you, considering we wouldn't get our top guy in Eric Bieniemy?
Oh no, 100%. I mean, Saleh and Sam Bieniemy are my two top guys. I would be ecstatic with either of them. They're two completely different types of head coaches,
obviously,
and they're going to mold two different identities in Detroit. I don't think Saleh is a fraud the way Matt Patricia was in terms of being a defensive guru. I do really believe Robert Saleh is a defensive guru. And I do think that under his tutelage, the Lions are going to be molded into a defensive unit, similar to what we saw with San Francisco. And with Eric Bieniemy, I do think that you might be closer to success, because I do think we are closer in terms of our offense and having the offensive pieces to become.
The Chiefs' defense is still pretty good.
Yeah, but Eric Bieniemy is the OC. I don't think.
Right. No, I know. I know. Like it would still take a good defense to be as good as the Chiefs. That was my point.
Yeah, no, but I'm just talking about if we're talking about the identity that I think Eric Bieniemy would create here, which I do think would be just like an high octane offensive team. I do think we're a little bit closer to having the pieces to achieve that than we are to try to maybe fit into Robert Saleh's what his identity for the team would be. But I am on board with either of these guys. I'd be ecstatic if we got Salah. I'd be ecstatic if we got Bieniemy. I'd go as far as say I really don't have a preference between the two.
Now, you and I both know that, and anybody who listens to this podcast knows that Bieniemy is our number one candidate. I do think he is the real deal. I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here and give you reasons why Robert Saleh could be the better candidate. Through the history of what we've signed, just looking at history and coaches and coordinators becoming coaches, when you see a situation where the coordinator kind of is able to hide behind the head coach a little bit, you don't always see success there. And in Robert Saleh's case, with Kyle Shanahan as his head coach, Kyle Shanahan is an offensive guru. Like, he may be the best play caller in all of football. So that means that Robert Saleh has full control of the defense. Every decision on that defense goes through him, and he has carte blanche. He can do whatever he wants there. So that means he's already got experience as being the number one guy, and he very much has is proven to be one of the best defensive guys and one of the best at his position as a defensive coordinator in the league. And there's nothing to hide behind there because he was put out in front because his head coach is an offensive guy. Now, in the case of Eric Bieniemy, albeit, again, I believe in him. I think he's the best OC. I think Eric Bieniemy is going to be a great head coach wherever he goes. However, that's not the same case with Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid. Andy Reid is one of the most well-known, famous, probably Hall of Fame level offensive gurus in the NFL. Like, he is one of the best offense whisperers. He's probably the best offensive head coach in the NFL. He's a legend at offense. So Eric Bieniemy has the opportunity to hide behind that a little bit and maybe Andy Reid makes up for some of the shortcomings that Eric Bieniemy may or may not have. So he's able to hide behind Andy Reid's legacy a little bit for that, because of that. So that may be a knock on Bieniemy when he's let out on his own. That once the leader's gone, he may not flourish. So there is that possibility there. Now, again, I've said I do believe Eric Bieniemy is the guy. I think he is the best candidate out there. I think he will be a successful head coach. But there is something to be said that a guy who is at the forefront in Robert Saleh may be a little bit more successful because he's already there. Versus a guy like Bieniemy who's able to hide a little bit. You won't see the shortcomings as much.
I think that's sound reasoning. I hadn't really thought of that before. But it harkens back to what you saw at Patricia. Like, you can make the argument that his production was masked behind, like,
Bill
he was able to
Belichick.
hide behind Belichick, basically. And
Yep.
so you could definitely make that argument, and I think it's valid. Now, does that scare me away from Bieniemy at all?
Hell
Not really.
no. No, Bieniemy is my guy. Like, that is the guy I want to see come here, especially if we get John Dorsey. Oh,
Yeah.
God, that combination would be so nice.
Now, here, I have one random question for you before we
Yeah.
move on. Let's say we hired Eric Bieniemy, and let's say the Lions were suddenly in a position, found themselves in a position on draft day to land Justin Fields. Is that a combination you would want?
Oh, God. I hate Ohio State quarterbacks. That is the one guy. Like, give me any other name, and I'm like, hell yes. Hell yes. Any other name in the first round, like any of them, I'm all on board. I do not like Ohio State quarterbacks. I've never seen one be successful in this league, ever. In fact, I did look this up. Unless I missed one, there's never been a successful Ohio State graduated. Keyword graduated.
Yeah, we gotta put that there. Yeah,
yeah. Like, maybe not even graduated, but Ohio State primary quarterback, because Joe Burrow, Ohio State, but he was primary LSU. Like, that was his college. I don't think there's ever been one that's been ultra successful in the league. Like, I just don't.
I just Googled that. I go, most successful Ohio State QB in the NFL. First thing that comes up, and this is from NFLmocks.com. I don't know who that is, but they said perhaps the most successful Buckeye quarterback in the NFL was Terrell Pryor, who made his greatest impact as a wide receiver.
Exactly. And he wasn't even that great of a wide receiver. He had one good year.
Yep.
Like, that's my point about Justin Fields. Like, I love the player. I think he's an awesome playmaker. I think he's got a real talent, and he's got a hell of an arm. He's got great legs. He's got escapability. He's got the X factor. I just don't know if Ohio State breeds good quarterbacks. I don't
what
think
is it about that system that they just, it's like
I don't know. Like
NFL
it's
poison.
just always been that way.
Yeah.
Like NFL quarterbacks coming out of Ohio State do not succeed in the NFL. They just don't know how to run an NFL offense. They don't make the right decisions.
the running backs or wide receivers or
maybe
they
it's
succeed,
an overly micromanaged offense when it comes to the quarterback position. And once they get rid of that micromanagement, they can't succeed. And you don't have that level of micromanagement, that level of control of an offense in the NFL like you do in college. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But again, putting a quarterback that goes that went to Ohio State in my hands, at the very least with Eric Bieniemy and John Dorsey and whoever, but with Eric Bieniemy there, I will say if John Dorsey drafts him, I trust it. Let me preface that. But putting him in the hands of Eric Bieniemy, I really do believe that Eric Bieniemy can make him successful. I'll say that.
I mean, that's what I was going with because, like, I don't want to sit here and try to make the comparison of Justin Fields to Pat Mahomes, but like,
there is no comparison.
I'm saying that I don't want to sit there and make the comparison, but if Bieniemy's trying to fit a specific system here that he was working in Kansas City, Justin Fields could be the type of quarterback that could work in that system. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't know if Bieniemy's system would be actually beneficial for Justin Fields or not. But I would lean towards it would be, and maybe that makes it a good pick. I don't know, but we're projecting too far ahead at this point.
Yes, we don't even have the head coach yet, or the GM,
or the player,
or the draft pick to get the player. Because right now he's looking like he's going to the Jags.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Anything else said before we move on?
Nope. Let's go to the Pistons.
All right. First thing I want to talk about. We had mentioned in multiple previous weeks, we were kind of perplexed on why Pistons fans seem to be excited about the possibility of Derrick Rose mentoring Killian Hayes when Derrick Rose has never shown any interest in being a mentor at any point in his tenure in this league. Well, during the Pistons, he basically, in lieu of a media day, the Pistons have been having like players like do like on like virtual interviews or just make virtual videos or whatever. Anyway, so in his interview, Derrick Rose had talked about Killian Hayes, and he said that he told him he was the future of the team. He said, I told him that he was the future of the team, and there's no competing. My job is to push him and groom him into a great player. Are we finally seeing Derrick Rose actually embrace a mentorship role?
No, that's him being coached what to say. Derrick Rose has never been that guy. Derrick Rose will never be that guy. He just isn't. I think this is a situation of, and I'm kind of reading between the lines a little bit with Derrick Rose's comments. I think this is Derrick Rose saying, hey, Killian, this is your team. This is your future. I'm just going to get the hell out of the way. I'll do what I'm told while I'm here. I'm probably going to be gone at the deadline. This is your show. Like it's not Derrick Rose's show, and he knows that. This is Killian Hayes' show.
He has, I think, in cases where he said that Killian Hayes is going to be the starter.
Yes.
Game one.
Right. And, well, again, you can't expect Derrick Rose to be a starting point guard in this league anymore.
Yeah.
You can't trust him. But this is Derrick Rose knowing his role and saying, I'm not going to try to compete for what I know is a given. Like, it's a given that Killian Hayes is the future of this franchise. They will live and die on Killian Hayes and whoever they draft next year. And Derrick Rose is not going to have a say in that, and he knows that. So even if he's ultra successful, he's going to be traded.
So you're saying he's more of a reluctant mentor is what you're speculating?
I don't even think it's a mentor. I think
because there have been reports out of camp already that he has been taking Killian Hayes under his wing and teaching him things. And
cool, I don't believe him. I don't believe him. You can report it all you want. I don't believe it. Like maybe I'm being overly harsh, but I don't believe Derrick Rose is a mentor. He never has been. We've never seen a young guard say, oh, I thank Derrick Rose for being my leader and being my coach on the floor and practice.
Yeah, so that's why I thought this was noteworthy, because this is the first time we've heard Derrick Rose sound like he's going to be embracing a mentorship role.
I don't see it. It's never happened, and it's not like Derrick Rose hasn't had opportunities, because he has, and I don't think this is any different. I think this is Derrick Rose just getting the hell out of the way and allowing Killian Hayes to grow on his own. Maybe he shows him a thing here or two, but I don't think he's mentoring him in any way. I think this is Derrick Rose just getting the hell out of the way, which he needs to.
Well, I agree with you that Derrick Rose needs to get out of the way and let Killian take the lead and try to blossom here. But I'll take the opposite side of this. I do think this is legit. I do think that Derrick Rose is taking a little more of a mentorship role with Killian, and I personally think it's a really good thing for the Pistons and for Killian Hayes in particular, because I think that, like, again, we had said that we just didn't think this was something that was going to happen, but if it really is something that's going to happen, I think Derrick Rose is a great person for Killian to learn from, to pick up on some of his. Derrick Rose had some of the best court vision I don't want to say in terms of passing, but in terms of getting to the basket, he had some of the best court vision that we've seen of modern point guards. And Killian has shown he has a lot of playmaking ability. He's shown he has a lot of court vision in terms of passing. Maybe he can help him get to the basket better. Not that Killian, that's a major weakness for Killian, but like to become more of a scoring point guard, who better to learn from than a guy who won an MVP doing that? Obviously, he's not at his MVP caliber level anymore, but the guy who won the MVP being that scoring level point guard.
See, I was going to ask you if Derrick Rose mentoring Killian Hayes is something you want to see, and you kind of answered that question right there. Where I'm kind of on the other side of that coin there. I'm leaning towards I don't want to see it as much, because I don't want that type of player in Killian Hayes. Like the Bulls were never ultra successful with Derrick Rose as the guy there.
I don't want him to be Derrick Rose. I just want that to be a part of his game, like in terms of the added threat to.
I want to see more of a playmaking ability out of Killian Hayes, because I think next year's draft is provided things go what we expect them to and how we expect them to. Next year's draft is where we're getting our number one offensive guy, like our number one guy.
Fingers crossed.
Right. Fingers crossed. Again, is going how we expect them. Not next year or the year following is where we are getting our guy to be the future of this franchise, to be the cornerstone, the guy, the number one. And so I would want Killian Hayes to kind of feed that. I don't want Killian Hayes to try to fight with that and compete and hinder that development. I'd more rather see Killian Hayes develop as a playmaker, an elite level playmaker, and be a guy who is willing to spread the ball more. And also looking at Derrick Rose, he's also always been a me guy. He's never been a team guy. He's been a me guy. And I don't really want to see Killian Hayes develop into that. And if he is mentored by Derrick Rose, he's going to pick up on a lot of those mentalities and a lot of that mindset that Derrick Rose has always possessed in this league. And don't get me wrong, Derrick Rose was one of the best point guards in the league. And I loved watching him play, and he was awesome. But I don't know that the way that this organization is going to be built will succeed with a guy like that. And I love Derrick Rose, and he's awesome. But I just don't want to see Killian Hayes develop into what Derrick Rose, not entirely into what Derrick Rose was. I don't want him to pick up on the mindsets and what Derrick Rose was mentally.
No, you bring up a good point, because right now, Killian Hayes is really good at creating shots for his teammates. Really good operating on the pick and roll.
And I want to build
really good distributing. And you want that to be built upon. My only argument is, I don't think it hurts to give him a little bit of that edge, because he's a good scorer, but he's not a tenacious scorer. And I want him to still be that pass first point guard, because like you, I do expect us, and I would hope that we're able to secure that our go-to scorer in either next year's draft or the following. But I think the added threat, if Derrick Rose could help with that, I think it could be. So
then there's a difference between him mentoring him and molding him into the player that people are saying, and coaching him a little bit to try to be a little more aggressive. There's a big difference there. I think Derrick Rose would be willing to coach him to be a little more aggressive, but I don't necessarily want to see him mentor Killian Hayes and take him under his wing. I want there to be a little separation there.
Now,
and I expect there to be a little separation there.
Speaking of Killian, good move having him starting game one.
If you're not, you need to fire Dwayne Casey. He is one of the future cornerstones of this franchise. The future of Troy Weaver and the success of the Detroit Pistons over the next 3 to 5 years hinges and begins on hinging on Killian Hayes' success in this league. So yes, he needs to start day one.
Now, what are your expectations for Killian in the preseason and the season in general? Because this will be the last game before the last podcast we put out before we see their first tip-off.
A lot of mistakes and a lot of growing. I don't expect much from Killian Hayes in his first year. I don't expect to see him, if he scores double digits he's exceeding my expectations. If he averages more than 7 assists, he's exceeding 6 assists. He's exceeding my expectations. If he averages fewer,
so you're thinking it's like 9 and 6 is what we're going to see out of
Killian. 9 and 6, 9 and 5, 8 and 5, and probably with 4 or 5 turnovers a game. Like if he averages any less than that, again, he's exceeding expectations. And
so you're not looking for rookie of the year candidacy out of Killian Hayes.
I'm not. I expect a lot of mistakes. Mind you, again, you got to remember this guy's coming from France.
Yeah, he's 19.
He's right. He's 19, coming from France. He hasn't played college basketball here in the U.S. He hasn't fully experienced U.S. style of basketball. It's different over there. So I expect a lot of growing pains from Killian Hayes, and a lot of times where Dwayne Casey pulls him out early and sits him down and coaches him a little bit. I'd love to see the Pistons hire a coach that literally is a point guard guru and sit there and literally focus on nothing but Killian Hayes. Like, ignore the other point guards, focus on Killian Hayes and Killian Hayes' development only. And when Killian Hayes makes a big mistake or a few mistakes in a row in a game, pull him out, sit him down, regardless of what the score of the game is, pull him out, sit him down, and talk to him. Coach him. Make him learn. And hopefully he's receptive of that and understands that, hey, this is to help me. I'd love to see the Pistons do that because this year's not about winning games. This year is about development. What do you expect out of Killian Hayes this year?
I think I have a little bit of higher expectations than you do. I do think that he's capable of putting up like 12, 13 a night, maybe 6 assists.
I say under 10 just because, it's I don't expect a ton of scoring out of the guy. Like if he's we're going to see nights where he puts up 20, 25. Yes, but there's also going to be nights where he puts up 2. So I just think it ends
we're
up,
talking about a 19-year-old here,
right?
Like,
I think it's just going to end up rounding out around 8 to 12. I'll put it in that range.
If he comes out and is suddenly like super consistent, averaging like 15 8 a game, I'm going to be blown away.
Oh my god, I would just love it.
I will
buy a Killian Hayes jersey.
I'm already considering buying a Killian Hayes jersey as long as he doesn't completely disappoint me. But like obviously we're both expecting to blossom into a really good point guard, but when we're talking about first season for a 19-year-old kid, I'm gonna say I'd say like around 12 and 6 is what I'm expecting him to average.
Good with that.
I expect the preseason to be ugly though.
Ugly to say the least. If he ends up averaging 12 and 6 this year, I'll be ecstatic.
Now, I do want to talk about Troy Weaver for a second. Again, with the press conferences introducing the new players, Troy Weaver has been fielding a lot of questions as well. And in his introductory comments when he was introducing Mason Plumlee and Jahlil Okafor, he addressed the whole
2 most unexciting sightings of the offseason.
He addressed the whole center big men thing and seemed to poke a little bit of fun at himself in the process. But this is without being prompted. This is in the opening remarks. He said, "Let the record show. I know there was a lot about us collecting a lot of centers. Absolutely, I love bigs. People always say they want the opposite. Guards want to be bigs. Bigs want to be guards. I love big guys. I believe that's the way we win, by controlling the backboards. It's hella true. I've never seen a team win a championship without in controlling the backboards. I welcome all the center jokes, but I do love centers."
Is this 2005 calling or?
So, he was asked in that press conference. I can't remember what reporter asked. He was asked, like, yes, you like we get that like bigs are important, but do you have any concern that with the way the modern NBA is going, that the play styles or the abilities of Jahlil Okafor
not
or
just
Mason
going
Plumlee,
the way the modern NBA is,
and Mason Plumlee doesn't fit the modern NBA, and he basically said he disagrees. He touted Mason Plumlee's passing ability, said he's an exceptional passer. He touted Jahlil Okafor just overall scoring ability. He's more than just like a low post scorer. So he seems to believe that those two are actually capable of fitting as modern NBA bigs. But just in general, looking at Troy Weaver's comments as a whole, what do you make of it?
I know what this is. This is Troy Weaver justifying the next 2 to 3 years of the Pistons sucking. And
it makes you worried that Patrick Williams thing wasn't actually a motion. They actually wanted to take
No, this is him giving a reason to bring these guys into a situation that just fits his timeline. Like, he knows this team isn't going to be successful for 3 years, and these guys are just stopgaps for the time being. I don't think he necessarily entirely thinks that Mason Plumlee and Jahlil Okafor are the future bigs of this franchise. I don't think he believes that at all, in fact.
I don't think anybody does.
I think he thinks these guys are just stopgaps for a bad basketball team while he builds this into a great basketball team. Those guys won't be around in 2-3 years. I'll tell you that right now. And while I do think it would be awesome if we were able to grab a guy that, you know, had the passing ability and the playmaking and ball handling abilities of a Nikola Jokic, like I feel like he's looking at Mason Plumlee and saying, all right, you're going to be Jokic light. And it's never going to happen because Jokic can shoot. But like if the Pistons were eventually to grab a guy that basically was a Nikola Jokic type player and that be their big man, oh my God, this team would be so deadly.
Oh yeah.
If you got say we get Cade Cunningham, dream scenario, we have Killian Hayes, and then you give me Nikola Jokic 2.0, that's championship. That's championship right there, no question. Because the amount of playmakers on that offense and the ability to score, like, oh, God. So I think what he's doing in touting Mason Plumlee's passing ability is he's got an eye on players of the future that he's looking at in certain positions saying, hey, Killian, get used to playing with this because that's how it's going to be. But I also think he's looking at the guys he brought in and is kind of poking fun in a not poking fun way, saying that these guys are just stopgaps for what is to be a bad basketball team for a couple of years.
Yeah. Part of me wonders if he really did just bring in like guys like Mason Plumlee and Ja Okafor just to function better off the pick and give Killian some pick and roll scorers to pass to. Like,
and guys who were in with Mason Plumlee, guys who were able to pass the ball a little bit.
All right, I want to close this off with a little bit more fun, albeit kind of scary topic almost, but I want one hot take for the Pistons this season before we start the preseason here. Do you have one hot take? I can start if you want.
I got one. I got one. Jeremy Grant will have all-star consideration, if not make the all-star game.
Whoa.
In fact, I think Jeremy Grant averages 21 plus.
I would love that.
I would too. I think Jeremy Grant averages 21 plus. He's the guy on this team.
Without Blake Griffin, he probably is your go-to scorer.
Yep.
If Blake Griffin's ever out. My hot take, I'm going to go with, I think Josh Jackson has a career resurgence similar to what we saw in Christian Wood.
God, please let it happen.
I mean, we saw Dwayne Casey resuscitate Christian Wood back from the dead. And Josh Jackson coming back to his hometown, he does look like he kind of cleaned up his act a little bit last season.
Josh Jackson's from here? Oh, yeah. Minnesota. Josh Jackson's from here?
Yeah.
What? I did not know this. Oh, he's from San Diego.
No, he's from here.
Born in San Diego.
No, he's from here.
I don't believe you.
He grew up in Michigan.
What? Mm-hmm. I did not know this. Why didn't I know this?
He lived in San Diego. He lived in San Diego until he was 8 months old, and he moved to Michigan.
Oh my! Wait, no. He went to school in Napa, California, high school, just in Siena, Napa, California.
Yeah, he moved to Michigan when he was 8 months old to be closer to family. All his family lives here.
He did.
He went to middle school here. He went to Consortium Prep in Detroit for freshman and sophomore years of high school before he went to Napa.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
I did not know this.
He grew up in
And you're talking
Detroit.
to a Josh Jackson fan. Like, I like Josh Jackson. I like what he brings. I like the Swiss Army knife.
So he's talked about, like, if you listen to his portions, like when they did his press conference, he talked about how happy he is to finally be back home, and he's gonna be able to surround himself with family and keep his circle tight. And like I said, he'd already looked like he cleaned his act up last season. And I do think Dwayne Casey's seeing what he did with Christian Wood. I do think Josh Jackson's in a spot to succeed here. And Dwayne Casey said that Josh Jackson has a totally clean slate in Detroit. I do think there's a need for his services in Detroit in terms of his scoring ability. So I do think Josh Jackson has a career resurgence.
There is not a team in this league that can't say they don't need a guy like Josh Jackson and what he could potentially bring to the table. Mm-hmm. A guy who can play 1 through 5. Imagine. No, if Josh Jackson has a career year and his career is just resurged and he's what we thought he would be coming into this league, and then you add that to the future of this franchise, the sky's
it's
the
limit. Timeline. He's only 23.
Right. The sky's the limit. Like there is no question we could be successful at that point.
We're only a few years removed from him being a top 5 pick. Like,
right.
It's not This wasn't that long
I
ago.
said a couple of weeks ago that the Josh Jackson signing was one of my favorites. And I even, in the text when we grabbed to Josh Jackson, I said to you guys, because we have the group chat with you, me, Alex, and, whoever. I think actually that was just with you, me, and our buddy. But I said in that group chat, I actually like the Josh Jackson signing because, I think he, for what he was drafted to be, maybe a change of scenery turns him into what we wanted him to be. And with good coaching with Dwayne Casey, I do think he can be successful. And if he is, I love the potential there. And if he is successful here, maybe he sticks around for a hot minute and is part of the future of this franchise. He's young and he's got a lot of potential. So I'd like to see Josh Jackson succeed.
So that's gonna be my hot take. And I'm hoping both our hot takes come true.
I like yours better than mine.
If we have a 20-plus point scorer in Jeremy Grant, if we have a resurged Josh Jackson, and then if Killian Hayes ends up having a really good rookie year, we might have a worse draft pick than we thought.
Right, true. I like yours better than mine because I think yours involves the future of this franchise a lot more.
Yeah, true. Jeremy Grant sort of fit maybe the back end of our window if everything swings right and we're
the very front end of the winning window is where he would fit. I will be honest though, I want this team to suck and suck real bad this year.
Oh, I 100% agree.
I want to watch guys like Killian Hayes succeed and Sadiq Bey succeed.
Yeah, I just
and
want
Isaiah
to see
Stewart succeed, but I want this team to suck so bad.
If you ask me what I'm looking for from this season,
12 wins.
It's just growth. It's growth, particularly growth on the part of the rookies, a semblance of an identity, and 12 wins.
12 wins. That's all I want. I want that draft lottery.
I'm not looking to make the playoffs. I don't want to make the playoffs. I don't even want to be close to the playoffs. The top part of this draft is way too good for us to be good.
Cade Cunningham looks so good
This year.
Cade Cunningham looks so good. I will could you imagine him in a Pistons uniform? And then in the next year, and then the following year we had Amani Bates. Oh.
It's going to take a lot of sucking, but we can.
Yes. You know what? I can deal with a couple of years of sucking to grab Cade Cunningham and Amani Bates.
Yeah.
Cade Cunningham, Amani Bates, Killian Hayes, Josh Jackson, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart. That's our team in the future? All right. I'm good with that. I'll suck for 2 more years for that.
It'll be the most happiest I've ever been to watch a terrible basketball team.
Yes. And then that happens and championship or bust. It's championship or bust. All right. Anything else to add?
No, that's it.
That's going to close it out for this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We had a little fun with that. Pistons talk is getting exciting.
For once.
I know.
How
it's
long
been
has
a
it
while.
I
don't think I've actually
speculate positively.
I don't think I've been excited to speculate positively about the Pistons since Stan Van traded for Avery Bradley and Tobias Harris. That's the last time I can truly imagine I was super positive on.
Yep. That was the last time I was really excited about Pistons was that trade.
Yep. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week. Hope you enjoyed. Follow us on Twitter at Real Fan Reports. I can find us. Follow at Detroit Sports Podcast as well. Thank you to them. Thank you for joining me, Andrew. I don't want to say go Lions, but go Lions? I don't know. Go Pistons. Go Pistons.
Is it weird that I want to see him win just to make Matt Patricia look even worse? Is that like a thing?
I mean, didn't we get that today though? Like, is that enough today? Because Patricia couldn't beat the Bears, but
he couldn't.
Bevel can.
But if you take this team and beat the Packers,
that'd be
really
fun.
make Patricia look bad.
Okay, I'll say this: I always want to beat the Packers. Yeah, I don't care if we're 0-15. I want to beat the Packers.
Yeah, I'll go with you on that one.
Yeah. Anytime to ruin Aaron Rodgers' day is a good day. Anyways, guys, thank you again. This has been Fan Report. Where's Bye, fans?
For fans.
We'll catch you next week. Have a good one. Peace out.
Peace.